Hello everyone, my name is Sketchy, and today I'm going to be talking about common mistakes that Japanese learners make. So whenever you're learning a new language, especially if you're teaching yourself, you tend to learn things that aren't exactly commonplace in day-to-day language, and sometimes you learn things that sound absolutely strange to native speakers. The problem is, you probably won't realize this until after it's already too late. Hopefully this video will help stop you from learning the wrong thing before it's too late. So let's get started. Disclaimer. Please keep in mind that this is not all of the mistakes Japanese learners make, and the solutions I give are not the only options. If you're serious about learning Japanese, I would highly suggest doing some of your own research, as well as watch some videos made by native Japanese speakers. Do you know how to say I love you in Japanese? Many Japanese learners are taught to say aishiteru when they want to express love to somebody. Unfortunately, aishiteru is a bit too intense to be used commonly, or at all really. Aishiteru is kind of at the level reserved for something like your dying words. Instead of using aishiteru, which would probably shock and scare whoever you said it to, you should use daisuke. Daisuke is a lot less intense and can be used in a wide variety of situations. It is important to remember, however, that Japanese people don't exchange I love yous the same way that people in Western cultures do. With this in mind, you may want to use daisuke sparingly so that you don't get looked at strangely. This is one of the first things you learn when you're studying Japanese, but strangely enough, you use it a lot less than textbooks would have you think. For example, when introducing yourself, if you start with hajimemashite, you don't have to use watashi wa at all. For instance, I would say hajimemashite, Sketchy desu. America kara kimashita. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Really, the only time you actually need to use watashi wa is when you want to make sure that the listener knows you're talking about yourself. This is another phrase that many Japanese learners are taught early on. Unfortunately, it's not really used the way we think it is. Most Japanese learners are told that Genki desu ka is a way of asking somebody, how are you? And it is, but more in a way that expresses concern for their well-being. So when you say Genki desu ka, instead of making light conversation, you sound like you're concerned that the other person is depressed. So unless you're actually worried about your friend's mental state, I would suggest using ima nani shiteru no instead. Ima nani shiteru no is a way of asking what's going on or what are you doing. It's important to remember that Japanese people do not have the same conversation formula as people in Western cultures do. Though it's normal for us to ask how are you in places like America and Canada, it's not considered normal in Japan. This one is a little trickier because it's more complicated concerning when you should and shouldn't use it. Similarly to watashi wa, anata wa can be omitted from a sentence as long as the subject is obvious. Anata is the Japanese equivalent of you in English. However, you should never use it when you're talking to somebody you know, even if you don't know them very well, because to a Japanese speaker, it sounds rude. If you want to avoid being rude, you should say the person's name plus san instead of anata. That being said, if you're a married woman, you can say anata to your husband as a sort of pet name. In this circumstance, it means something along the lines of my darling or my sweetheart in English. Otherwise, the only time you should use anata is if you're briefly speaking to somebody you don't know and probably never will get to know. For example, if you're on the street and somebody walks by and drops their wallet, you can call out anata to get their attention. This is what most Japanese learners are taught to say when they want to say goodbye. But actually, most Japanese speakers don't say sayonara except for in serious situations. If you're in a formal situation, you should instead say shitsurei shimasu, which means something along the lines of excuse me. If you're with your friends, then you should say ja mata ne, which means see you later. Additionally, if you know you're going to see the person the next day, you could say mata ashita, because mata ashita means see you tomorrow. Be careful when using it though, because mata ashita is very casual and would be considered impolite to use in a formal situation. Thank you all so much for watching my video. Please subscribe to see new content weekly and click that little bell icon next to the subscribe button to get notified every time I upload a new video. If you can spare a small donation, check out my Fundly, or if you have the ability to donate monthly, check out my Patreon. Patrons get access to a bunch of extra content such as behind the scenes photos and videos, live streams, monthly perks, and a patron exclusive feed. If you enjoyed watching my video, then you can check out my last video by clicking on the thumbnail below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.